The stars above the alien world glimmered softly, like pinpricks of light in a vast, endless ocean. For centuries, the Kolrathi, a proud and technologically advanced species, had ruled this corner of the galaxy. They had conquered countless worlds, their empire stretching far and wide. They believed themselves to be the pinnacle of civilization, with an unmatched understanding of science and warfare. To them, no species could compare to their strength and intellect. Their space stations were fortresses, and their warships the envy of the cosmos. But all that was about to change. On a quiet night in the Kolrathi capital, deep in the heart of their mighty empire, an unassuming event would take place. A small, unremarkable ship appeared on their radar. It was nothing special by their standards. Its design was old, and its technology seemed primitive compared to the ships of the Kolrathi. The ship was drifting silently, almost as if it were a forgotten relic from a bygone era. At first, the Kolrathi were not concerned. Their military forces were on high alert, as usual, but they saw no reason to panic. An old ship entering their space. It was likely just another failed vessel from some insignificant race. The Kolrathi had encountered many such ships in the past, small, helpless, and easily dealt with. Their empire was vast, their security unparalleled. The thought that anything could pose a threat to them was laughable. But then, something unusual caught their attention. The ship, although drifting through space, was not tumbling or out of control. It was moving with purpose, with a calm precision that suggested intelligence behind it. It was also sending a signal, one that the Kolrathi had never seen before. It was not a distress signal, nor a typical transmission from a lost ship. The message was brief, cryptic, and yet strangely familiar. The Kolrathi authorities quickly responded, assuming the ship was a mistake. A squadron of warships was dispatched to investigate. Their plan was simple: capture the ship, examine its contents, and determine what had caused the strange signal. If it was a human vessel, they would treat it as nothing more than a curiosity. As the Kolrathi warships closed in on the drifting craft, their sensors scanned it for any sign of life. There was a moment of silence. The ship was small, far too small for anything of importance. Surely this was just some kind of miscommunication, or an anomaly in the galaxy's endless expanse. They prepared to board, thinking they could end this quickly. But what they found was far from ordinary. Inside the small ship, the Kolrathi found a human child. The child was alone, floating gently in the midst of the vessel's simple interior. There was no sign of distress, no cries for help, no signs of panic. The child, barely 10 years old, appeared calm, almost serene. She was dressed in simple clothes, her eyes wide with innocence, as if she were unaware of the massive alien ship surrounding her. At first, the Kolrathi were confused. The child seemed out of place. They had expected an adult or a scientist, perhaps someone of importance, but a child. It was almost laughable. They quickly assumed the human child was simply a byproduct of some larger mission. Perhaps an experiment gone wrong, or maybe she had been abandoned by a ship that had long since disappeared into the depths of space. They believed her to be nothing more than a pawn, a defenseless little girl who could offer no resistance. The Kolrathi made their move. The child was taken aboard one of their warships and placed in a secure holding cell. She showed no signs of fear, no resistance. She was calm, almost unnervingly so, as the Kolrathi prepared to interrogate her. They believed the child to be no more than an innocent mistake, a prisoner of circumstance. Her ship, they concluded, was a failed experiment, and she was nothing more than a lost human, likely from a forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy. But even as the Kolrathi went about their preparations, something in the back of their minds nagged at them. There was an unease they couldn't shake, a quiet whisper of something greater at play. The child, though seemingly powerless, seemed to hold a secret, and the Kolrathi couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made a very, very dangerous mistake. The Kolrathi warship that now held the human child moved through space at a steady pace, its powerful engines cutting through the silent void. A feeling of quiet confidence filled the ship's command deck. The Colrethi had captured what they believed to be a harmless human child. Surely there was nothing to fear. The child, still dressed in simple, worn clothes, sat quietly in the holding cell, her small form framed by the cold, metallic walls. Her eyes, though wide, gave no hint of panic. In fact, there was no sign of fear at all. She looked up at the ceiling, as if pondering something far beyond the reach of her captors. The Colrathi, in their arrogance, dismissed it as innocence. "She is no threat," Commander Tasker, a high-ranking Colrathi officer, said as he stood with his arms crossed, staring at the monitor displaying the child's movements. A human child, no older than 10. "There's no need for concern." The other officers on the deck nodded in agreement. The child's ship, though unusual, was clearly of no real importance. The Colrethi had faced much more dangerous species in the past, beings with far more power, intelligence, and weaponry. And yet, all had fallen to the might of the Colrethi Empire. A human child would be no different. Tasker ordered that the child be examined in more detail. Perhaps there was something hidden on her ship, a clue to some larger mystery. The Colrethi were always eager for new knowledge, and they believed this child to be no more than a key to unlocking yet another puzzle. If humanity had any advanced technology, they would find it and claim it as their own. They had no interest in the human child herself. She was little more than an object, a means to an end. The child, however, showed no signs of fear when they approached her. 2 Colrethi soldiers, equipped with their usual intimidating armor and weapons, entered the holding cell. They expected the child to cower, perhaps beg for mercy, or at least show some sign of distress. But instead, she simply looked at them with an almost peaceful expression, as though she had already accepted her fate. It unnerved them. One of the soldiers tried speaking to her in the Colrethi language, his voice deep and commanding. "Where did you come from, human?" he demanded. "Who sent you here?" The child did not respond. She simply blinked and tilted her head, as if pondering the question. The soldier repeated his question, this time more forcefully. Still, there was no response. Frustrated, the soldier stepped closer, towering over the child. "Do you not understand me?" he sneered. "Do you not fear us?" Again, the child did nothing but stare at him, her gaze steady and calm. It was as though she were waiting for something the soldiers could not see. The soldiers exchanged confused looks, but quickly turned to leave, thinking the child was simply too weak to communicate. It was clear to them now that she was nothing more than a pawn, a defenseless little girl in their eyes. However, as they turned to exit the cell, something strange happened. The child's eyes flickered, and for a brief moment, the soldiers felt a sudden, inexplicable chill run down their spines. It wasn't fear of the child. It was something much deeper, something unexplainable. But the moment passed quickly, and the soldiers shook it off as nothing more than a trick of the mind. They had been in many tense situations before, and this was no different. They had seen far more dangerous creatures, and they would not let a little girl unsettle them. Meanwhile, back on the Colrethi command deck, the officers continued to watch the footage of the child. They were still convinced there was no threat. After all, humanity was nothing more than a fledgling species. They had barely begun to explore their own galaxy, let alone threaten others. The Colrethi had faced far more powerful adversaries in the past, and they had always come out on top. Yet, deep down, a sense of unease was growing among the officers. Something felt wrong. The child's silence was not like the fearful quiet of someone broken. It was as if she was waiting for something. But what? Tasker's fingers drummed against the edge of the table as he stared at the screen. His sharp mind could not ignore the nagging feeling that something was amiss. He had lived long enough to trust his instincts. "Prepare for a full scan of the child's ship," he ordered. "I want every corner examined. There has to be something more here than just a child." The officers moved to follow his command. But Tasker's mind was elsewhere. The unease continued to grow. It was as if the universe itself was sending a signal that they had made a mistake, and that mistake might cost them more than they could imagine. As the scan began, the ship's sensors hummed quietly. But no one could have known that deep within Earth's hidden vaults, far beyond the Calrethi's reach, a much larger, more powerful force was being activated, one that would soon reveal the true power of humanity, and the Calrethi would learn that they had underestimated far more than just a child. The Calrethi warship drifted through the vastness of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried the child and the rest of the crew deeper into the heart of their empire. As the ship moved, the Calrethi command deck was alive with activity. The officers had ordered a full scan of the human child's small vessel, hoping to uncover any clues as to why such a simple ship had arrived in their territory. They believed there was something important hidden within it, something that could benefit them. Yet, as the scans continued, the Calrethi officers were met with confusion. There was no clear answer. The child's ship was indeed primitive by Calrethi standards, but there was an undeniable mystery behind it. The technology was older than anything they had encountered before, yet it felt oddly familiar. It didn't fit the usual patterns of the human ships they had seen in the past. It was as though the ship was designed to be undetectable, its very purpose hidden from the Calrethi's advanced scanning systems. Commander Tasker paced back and forth in the command center, his sharp eyes glued to the screen showing the child's ship. Something about it unsettled him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. The Calrethi were used to being in control. They had never encountered an enemy they couldn't defeat, no matter how strange or dangerous. Yet this ship was different, as if it had appeared out of nowhere. What the Calrethi didn't realize was that they were not the only ones watching. Back on Earth, in a hidden underground facility that was known only to a select few, a series of ancient systems hummed to life. The vast vault, buried deep beneath mountains and oceans, had remained dormant for centuries. But with the arrival of the human child, the moment had finally come. The vault's complex network of machines began to stir. At first, the process was slow. The systems had been waiting, dormant and patient, for a signal, one that would awaken the sleeping giants of Earth's hidden might. The child, seemingly innocent, had unknowingly triggered the activation sequence. This was no ordinary child. She was the key to unlocking the long-forgotten strength of humanity. Hidden in Earth's history were secrets that had been carefully guarded, waiting for the right moment to rise. As the machines activated, the human command centers underground sprang into action. The people who had kept this secret for generations were no longer just observers. They were now part of something much larger, something that would forever change the course of history. Far above Earth's surface, deep in orbit, enormous ships began to emerge from their hidden stations. The Calrethi, still unaware of what was unfolding, continued to examine the child's ship. But at that very moment, massive, powerful warships rose from Earth's atmosphere. Their sleek, dark forms blended seamlessly with the stars as they quietly took their places in orbit, positioning themselves around the Calrethi fleet. These were not the ships of an undeveloped species. These were the ships of Earth's hidden Armada, an ancient fleet that had been lying in wait, ready to defend humanity should the need ever arise. The Calrethi had long assumed that Earth was an insignificant planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. They had been aware of humanity's existence, but had dismissed them as weak, divided, and incapable of posing any real threat. They had underestimated Earth's potential. What the Calrethi didn't know was that humanity had not only survived on its own for centuries, it had been preparing for this very moment. The massive ships in orbit were not just powerful war machines. They were the culmination of centuries of secret research, hidden technology, and human ingenuity. Built to be undetectable, these ships had been designed with the ability to remain invisible to any scanning systems. The Calrethi had no idea what was coming. As the fleet assembled, a command was issued from the underground base to the lead ship of the Armada. The captain, a seasoned military leader, stood at the helm, his expression calm but filled with purpose. He knew what needed to be done. The time had come for humanity to reveal its true strength to the galaxy. Back on the Kolrethi ship, the officers continued to scan the human child's vessel, oblivious to the rising threat. Commander Tasker's attention was still fixed on the screen, but his thoughts were becoming more troubled. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That unease he had felt earlier was growing stronger by the second. But before he could investigate further, the sensors on the warship detected an anomaly. The Kolrethi ships that had been in close proximity to Earth's orbit were now gone. Tasker's eyes widened in disbelief. The ships had vanished without a trace. There was no sign of them anywhere. They hadn't even registered on the Kolrethi's powerful scanners. A sinking feeling gripped his chest. The Kolrethi had always been masters of space navigation, but now they were faced with a mystery that was far beyond their understanding. And then the silence of space was broken by a single message. It was a transmission from Earth's fleet, broadcast in a simple, direct message. Humanity has arrived. It was short. It was clear. And it was only the beginning. The Kolrethi fleet had always been a symbol of power and dominance. Their warships were the envy of the galaxy, equipped with advanced weapons and shields that could withstand even the most aggressive attacks. For centuries, they had conquered worlds without facing a true challenge. And yet, as they sat in the depths of space near Earth, a strange feeling began to take root among the Kolrethi officers. Despite their confidence, something had changed. The quiet unease that had been creeping into their minds was now undeniable. Commander Tasker stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the vast emptiness of space. His fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair as he waited for the next report. His officers moved around him, going through routine checks and monitoring the ship's systems, but none of them could shake the growing sense of uncertainty. "We've lost contact with the forward fleet," one of the officers said, breaking the silence. "There's no sign of them on our scanners. It's as though they vanished." Tasker's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean vanished?" "They were just there." "Are you sure there's no trace?" "I'm certain, Commander," the officer replied. "The ships are completely off the grid. There's nothing." For a moment, Tasker remained still, his mind racing. He had never encountered anything like this before. It was as if the Kolrethi fleet had been swallowed up by the universe itself. But as he opened his mouth to issue new orders, the entire ship shuddered. A low hum vibrated through the walls, and the crew's eyes snapped to the scanners. The same officer who had reported the missing fleet now turned pale. "There's something else. It's on the edge of our sensors, a large fleet, very close, but we can't detect any specific details. It's like they're cloaked, hidden somehow." The officer's voice faltered as he spoke. The very idea of something being hidden from the Kolrethi was unthinkable. They prided themselves on their technology, their ability to see and control every corner of space. But now, something unknown was right under their noses. Before Tasker could react, a powerful surge of energy lit up the outer reaches of their fleet. Bright, almost blinding lights flashed across the black void of space, followed by a sharp burst of sound. The Kolrethi warships immediately went on high alert, their weapon systems flaring to life. But there was no attack, no missiles, no strikes, just the sudden appearance of massive ships, larger and more imposing than anything the Kolrethi had ever seen, and they were coming fast. The Kolrethi had no time to react. Before they could fire a single shot, the massive human ships descended upon them, emerging from the shadows with eerie precision. These ships were unlike anything the Kolrethi had ever imagined. Sleek, dark, and moving with an almost unnatural speed, they appeared to be made from materials that defied the Kolrethi's understanding of physics. No known weapons could have made them, and their stealth technology was unlike anything the Kolrethi had ever encountered. A voice suddenly filled the Kolrethi communication channels. It was calm, composed, and spoke in the common tongue of the galaxy. "This is Earth's Armada. Prepare to stand down." The message sent a shock through the Kolrethi officers. "Earth? They couldn't believe it. The humans had barely reached space, and now they were facing them with an armada of ships. How was it possible? The Calrethi had never even considered that Earth could have hidden such a force. Before Taskor could give any orders, the first volley of shots came. The Calrethi warships had no time to defend themselves as beams of concentrated energy ripped through their shields with ease. The energy was intense, far more powerful than anything the Calrethi had ever designed. Their ships began to buckle under the force of the attack, and alarms blared throughout the fleet. "We're being overwhelmed," one of the officers cried, panic creeping into his voice. "Their firepower is too much for us." The Calrethi fleet attempted to retaliate, firing their most advanced weapons. But it was clear that their attacks were ineffective. The human ships were too fast, too well coordinated, and their shields were impervious to the Calrethi weapons. The once proud Calrethi ships were now sitting ducks, unable to match the speed and strength of the human armada. Tasker's heart pounded in his chest as he watched his fleet crumble before him. He had always believed the Calrethi were invincible. Yet now, in the blink of an eye, they were being crushed by a force they had never seen coming. "Retreat! Retreat now!" Taskor shouted, but the order came too late. The human fleet was too far into their defenses now, and the Calrethi warships had nowhere to escape. One by one, the Calrethi ships began to fall. Explosions rippled through the fleet as human weapons tore through the Calrethi hulls. It was a swift, brutal strike, and the Calrethi were powerless to stop it. As the last of the Calrethi warships was disabled, Taskor stood frozen, staring out at the devastation. The sheer might of Earth's hidden armada was something he had never imagined possible. He had thought the human child was a weakness, a simple mistake. But now he realized that humanity had been preparing for this moment, and they were far stronger than anyone had ever believed. "Contact Earth," Taskor ordered, his voice shaking with disbelief. "We need to know what they want." But the message was already clear. Humanity had arrived, and they were no longer to be underestimated. As the Calrethi ships fell one by one, the vast emptiness of space seemed to hold its breath. The once proud warfleet, so confident in its strength, was now a broken shell, unable to defend itself against the might of Earth's hidden armada. The remaining Calrethi soldiers scrambled to salvage what they could, but it was clear their empire had met its match. Commander Taskor, now standing alone on the bridge of his flagship, stared out into the void of space. His eyes were wide, not just from disbelief, but from a deep, gnawing fear. He had seen many battles in his time, faced countless enemies, but nothing had prepared him for what he had just witnessed. Humanity, humans, had done the impossible. They had defeated the Calrethi fleet with ease. "Commander," one of his officers spoke cautiously, "the Earth fleet. They've stopped firing. They're waiting for us to respond." Taskor took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His hand trembled as he reached for the communications console. There was only one thing left to do. He needed answers. But no words could prepare him for the response he was about to receive. "Open a channel," he ordered, his voice colder than he felt. "Let's hear what they have to say." The officer quickly complied, and within moments, the screen flickered to life. The image of a human appeared before them, young, but with a presence that was unshakable. It was the child they had captured, the one who had sparked this entire chain of events. Tasker's heart skipped a beat. He had expected to speak with someone of authority, perhaps a high-ranking human leader. Instead, it was the child, staring at him with those same calm, knowing eyes. She didn't look frightened or even nervous. She was completely still, her face expressionless. "Commander Tasker," the child's voice was clear and firm, yet calm. "You must understand, this was never about a war. This was about making sure that humanity had a voice in this galaxy. And now, you've heard it." Tasker's mind reeled. A child. He had been led to believe that humanity was weak, divided, and easy to control. Yet here was this little girl, not just standing before him, but commanding an armada powerful enough to destroy his entire fleet. The idea was unthinkable. "You?" Tasker's voice faltered. You're just a child. How is this possible? How do you command such power?" The child did not flinch. "I'm not the one commanding it," she said, her voice unwavering. "The Armada is Earth's. It was always Earth's. I was just the one who activated it." Tasker's confusion deepened. Activated it? How? The child's gaze softened, as though she was speaking to someone who should already know the answer. "Earth has never been as weak as you thought. For centuries, humanity's leaders worked in secret, building a defense system unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. We knew that someday, someone would come to challenge us. We waited. And when the time came, we were ready." She paused, allowing her words to settle over the Kolrathi commander. "This armada was built in secret, not just by humans, but by our ancestors. People who understood that one day, humanity would need to stand together against a threat. You thought we were defenseless. You thought we were weak. But in truth, we were waiting for you to show us your true face." The realization hit Tasker like a blow to the chest. Humanity hadn't been preparing for a single battle. They had been preparing for the moment when an enemy like the Kolrathi would appear, a species that had no respect for other life forms, that saw them as nothing more than obstacles to be crushed. They hadn't just created technology. They had created a defense system designed to protect all of humanity, no matter the cost. You thought you could just take us." Tasker whispered. "We never meant to harm you. You were nothing to us." The child's expression didn't change. "We were something to you. You came here because you thought you could conquer us. But now you see, the galaxy is not yours to control. We will not be your prey." Tasker swallowed hard. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. The Kolrathi were not the conquerors they believed themselves to be. They had overestimated their power and underestimated the resilience of Earth. The child's words rang in his ears, and for the first time in his life, he felt helpless. "Then what now?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you want from us?" The child's eyes softened, though her gaze remained steady. "You will leave this space. You will never return to Earth. And you will tell your people that humanity is not to be trifled with." There was a long silence. Tasker knew that the Kolrathi would never challenge Earth again. They had been shown that humans were not weak. They were not helpless. They were strong, united, and capable of defending their home, with a force that even the Kolrathi could not match. The child's voice broke the silence once more. "If you honor this agreement, we will leave you be. But should you try to return, there will be no second chances." Tasker lowered his head, his pride shattered. The human child had done what no one had thought possible. She had saved Earth, and with her, all of humanity. With a final firm nod, he spoke, "We will leave. Your message is clear." The transmission ended, and the Kolrathi fleet, what remained of it, slowly retreated, defeated but alive. The child watched as they left, knowing that Earth's future had just been secured. The galaxy would never forget the lesson it had learned today. Never underestimate humanity. In the days that followed the Kolrathi retreat, the human world felt a strange sense of quiet. The battle that had unfolded in the stars was still fresh in everyone's memory, and news of the victory spread quickly. People around the globe were in awe, unable to fully grasp the magnitude of what had just happened. How had humanity, a species they had always been taught to think of as weak, managed to stand up to the mighty Kolrathi Empire? The Earth's hidden Armada had not only repelled the invaders, but it had also sent a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. It was a message that resonated across the stars, one that could never be undone. In the aftermath of the battle, a sense of unity swept over Earth. Governments that had long been divided put aside their differences. The moment of crisis had forced them to realize that the fate of their world was linked to something much greater than their individual nations. There were no more borders. There were no more divisions. Earth had come together as one. Humanity united in its survival. The child, the one who had unknowingly triggered the awakening of the Armada, became a symbol of this newfound unity. People looked to her as a beacon of hope, the face of humanity's strength. But for the child, it was never about fame or glory. She understood her role in the greater scheme of things, and she knew that the work was not yet done. The Kalrathi might have been defeated, but there were other forces in the galaxy that would surely take notice of Earth's strength. And the child, though young, was ready for what came next. In the quiet moments after the battle, she stood alone on a balcony in one of Earth's newly established Unity cities, looking out over a peaceful landscape. The vast stretch of green fields, the shimmering oceans, and the towering cities in the distance all seemed so much more significant now. They were more than just places to live. They were symbols of humanity's perseverance, its ingenuity, and its will to survive. A voice behind her interrupted her thoughts. It was General Ivanek, one of the highest-ranking military leaders in the new unified Earth government. He had played a crucial role in organizing the defense of Earth, though he, like so many others, had been surprised by the sheer power of the human Armada. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Ivanek asked, his tone serious but respectful. The child turned to face him, her eyes focused and determined. "Yes, General. The battle may be over, but our real challenge is just beginning." Ivanek nodded. "We've seen the reaction of the galaxy. There are factions out there that won't be happy with what we've done. Earth's victory will send ripples through the stars, and not all of them will be friendly." The child smiled softly, understanding the weight of his words. "I know, but humanity isn't afraid anymore. The Kalrathi thought we were weak, but now the galaxy knows who we are." "I hope you're right," Ivanek said, gazing out at the horizon. "Because there's still so much we don't understand. The Kalrathi may have been a threat, but they were just one piece of a much larger puzzle." The child walked to the edge of the balcony, her eyes scanning the sky. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. Humanity will be ready. We've faced the greatest challenge we've ever known, and we've proven that we can overcome it. That's the message we need to carry forward." A fleet of human ships passed overhead, their sleek forms cutting through the air as they moved to their new positions in space. Earth's Armada had not disappeared after the battle. It was still there, standing watch over the planet. The ships were a reminder of the strength that humanity had now unlocked, and a promise that they would never be caught off guard again. The child turned back to Ivanek, her face set in a calm, determined expression. "We have to keep moving forward. We need to continue exploring, continue advancing. We can't let fear stop us now. The galaxy will see that humanity is not just surviving, we're thriving." Ivanek's eyes softened. "You're right. We have to move forward together. We've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of, but now we have to prove that we can maintain our strength and build a future where we are no longer just survivors, but leaders." The child nodded, her expression unwavering. "The galaxy will know us as more than just survivors. It will know us as protectors, as explorers, as builders. We are humanity, and we will not be forgotten." As Ivanek watched her, he realized that this child, this symbol of humanity's strength, was right. The battle against the Kalrathi had been a victory, but the real work lay ahead. The galaxy would not just see humanity as a force to be reckoned with. They would see them as a people with a purpose, a people who would not rest until they had claimed their rightful place in the stars. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was no longer a species to be ignored, and together they would face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store. Weeks passed since the Kalrathi had retreated, and the peaceful silence that now hung over Earth was unlike anything the people had ever experienced. The victory against such a powerful foe had been a turning point, not just for the planet, but for humanity itself. The child, who had unknowingly sparked the chain of events that led to this moment, had become a symbol of strength, resilience, and unity. But she never sought recognition. Instead, she knew that the real challenge lay ahead. The human governments, united now more than ever, worked together to rebuild and prepare for the future. New alliances were forged with neighboring planets that had watched Earth's sudden rise with cautious curiosity. The once fragmented world was now a powerful force that commanded respect, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, unity, and the willingness to defend what was theirs. In a newly established space station that orbited the Earth, representatives from all corners of the world gathered. They were joined by ambassadors from different galaxies, eager to meet the humans who had made their mark on the cosmos. The air was thick with anticipation, as no one knew exactly what to expect. There were still those who saw Earth as a threat, but now, humanity had something more valuable than just firepower. They had the support of others who recognized the strength of their resolve. At the center of it all stood the child. Though still young, she exuded a quiet wisdom that no one could deny. As Earth's first intergalactic ambassador, she was tasked with bridging the gap between humanity and the other species of the galaxy. The weight of the position was not lost on her, but she had proven time and again that she was capable of far more than anyone had ever expected. She stood before the Council of Galaxy Leaders, her gaze steady, her words measured. "We stand at the dawn of a new era," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. The battle with the Calrathi was just the beginning. Now we have the opportunity to shape the future of the galaxy. Earth will not be a passive observer in this new age. We will be active participants, working with you all to ensure peace, cooperation, and mutual growth. Her words were met with silence at first, as the other leaders took in the gravity of her message. Many of them had been skeptical of humanity's ability to contribute to the galactic community, but after what had happened, those doubts were slowly fading. An elder alien from a distant planet, one who had witnessed countless conflicts over the centuries, leaned forward and spoke. "You are right, human child. The galaxy is a vast and unpredictable place, and though we are many, we are often divided. But what you have shown us is something we have not seen in centuries: unity, a willingness to stand together, not just for survival, but for something greater. That is something the galaxy needs." The room buzzed with quiet murmurs of agreement. Humanity had given the galaxy something valuable, an example of what could be achieved when people from all walks of life set aside their differences and worked toward a common goal. Earth had become a beacon of hope, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that. One by one, the other ambassadors spoke, offering their support and pledging to work with Earth in building a future that was brighter and more inclusive. It was clear that humanity was no longer a newcomer to the galactic stage. They were now seen as partners, capable of contributing just as much as any other species. After the meeting, as the child walked through the corridors of the space station, General Ivanek approached her. "You've done it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've united not just Earth, but the galaxy itself. I never thought I'd see the day when humanity would be respected by so many." The child smiled, but there was no arrogance in her expression. "It's not about respect," she said softly. "It's about trust. The galaxy is a big place, and we are just one small part of it. But if we can learn to trust one another, to see beyond our differences, we can make the universe a better place for everyone." Ivanek nodded, his face thoughtful. "I think we're just getting started, aren't we?" "Yes," the child replied, her eyes looking toward the stars. "This is only the beginning. We've taken the first step, but there's still so much more to explore. There are worlds out there that we've yet to meet, civilizations we've yet to understand. But one thing is certain, we won't face them alone. We will face them together." And so, Earth's journey into the cosmos continued. The victory over the Calrathi had changed everything. Humanity had proven that it was not just a species to be pitied, not a planet to be conquered. They had shown the galaxy that they were strong, capable, and willing to stand for what they believed in. The child, once seen as a symbol of Earth's vulnerability, had become the face of a new era, an era where peace was possible, where alliances were formed, and where humanity would play its part in the vast, interconnected universe. As the human ships flew beyond their solar system, their engines humming with the promise of new discoveries, Earth's future seemed limitless. With unity, determination, and the strength of their spirit, humanity had carved out a place among the stars, and the galaxy would never forget who they were.